Welcome to Bake to the Future. The wholesale baking industry mixes tradition and innovation to feed the world and the economy, generating some major dough while employing nearly 800,000 people in the U.S. We bring you a fresh take on the latest trends and issues impacting the baking sector through exclusive insights and conversations. Brought to you by the American Bakers Association, who will take you Bake to the Future.
Hi everyone, welcome to Bake to the Future. I'm Haley Blumenreich.
And I'm Katie Jewell.
And today we are thrilled to have a special guest host back with us today, Rob Mackey, President and CEO of the American Bakers Association. And he will talk with Kerwin Brown, who is the President and CEO of BEMA, the Baking Equipment Manufacturers and Allies, about how the bakery equipment manufacturers and all their members are doing amidst the coronavirus pandemic and what the baking industry might look like as we emerge from this crisis.
I'm really excited to hear this conversation. But first, a little bit of background on Kerwin and BEMA. And as president and CEO of BEMA since 2005, Kerwin has helped design and implement initiatives that keep BEMA thriving and relevant and that deliver significant value to BEMA members and the baking industry. Some of these initiatives include the Baking Industry Forum, BEMA Connect, and BEMA U.
And Kerwin currently serves on several of the IBIE committees and is on the advisory board for the Kansas State University Grain Science Department. And he is an active member of the American Society of Baking, Allied Trades of the Baking Industry, the National Association of Manufacturers, and both the American and Kansas City Society of Association Executives.
And this intro is still not done because he is such an esteemed guest. BEMA is an international trade association representing leading equipment manufacturers and suppliers. They provide education, networking, and other resources for their members. The American Bakers Association, we work very closely with our baking equipment counterparts on the many things, including IBIE, otherwise known as the International Baking Industry Exposition, which is the 20,000 person trade show in Las Vegas, which we co-own together, that happens every 3 years. We are looking forward to talking with him more about that later. Rob and Kerwin, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katie.
Before we kick the hosting duties over to Rob, Haley and I usually like to start the show with a few hardball questions. Let's see. I'll start with two. One, Kerwin, where are you joining us from today?
I'm in the BEMA office in Kansas City.
All right. In the office. Is anybody else there with you?
Andrew Girls, our business manager, accounting gentleman, is in here as well. So just the two of us.
Okay. So a quiet shop today.
Very
second,
quiet shop.
Yeah, well, the office is actually open. And so that's, something that not everybody is able to do right now. So anyway, and can you also tell us what your favorite baked good is?
Oh, wow.
This is the bonus question, Kerwin.
That is really hard. If you want to go sweets, it's probably a piece of pie, but a fresh baked, croissant or roll would be very, very high on the list as well. So
let me dive in here, Katie. Kerwin, you just got back from your hometown in Del Rio, Texas. And one of the things that you're known for down in Del Rio is your world-class pecan pie. Did you have any chance to make a pecan pie while you were down there?
We did not, but I'm sure I'll be making one when I here in the next few days. That's certainly some comfort food for my family is having a nice big piece of pecan pie. So.
I was just curious to hear, you've been in the baking industry, Kerwin, for 15 years now. So I was just curious to hear how you first got into the baking industry and BEMA.
That's a great question. Actually, it's 30 years because I spent 15 years with a company called Schick. At the time, they were Schick Tube Bavaria Corporation. Now they're Schick Estab. So I was the marketing guy for that company for about 15 years and had access to BEMA. So I would go to BEMA Summit, and the leadership there started letting me go to the BEMA annual convention in June and got exposure there. And then the job came up in early 2005 and interviewed and got the job and started in mid-April of 2005. So really been around the industry for about 30 years. And, once you get in the industry, it's really hard to get out. I just love the industry. I love the people. I love how interactive it is and how really people-oriented it is. And I, of course, love the baked goods. So it's fun to tell people about what you do, family or friends or whatever you tell, you say, I'm in the baking industry, and they immediately sort of light up and, tell you about their favorite baked good or a baking story. So it's a really great industry.
That's awesome to hear. And I'm sure that having that background in the baking industry has really helped you at your time at BEMA. So we will kick it off to Rob to take it away from here.
Great. Thank you, Haley. It sort of reminds me, Kerwin, your story is a little bit like the old Remington commercial where, Victor Kiam would say, I was a customer and then I decided to buy the company. So you were a customer of BEMA and then decided to end up running it. So that's a great story, great background. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. Kerwin and I go back not quite the 30 years, but pretty close. And I always enjoy when we get together and the ideas that get spun off and generated. And I think, given the title of our podcast, The Bake to the Future, where we really try to look as far forward as we possibly can. I can't think of anybody better to have on the podcast to help us envision what the future state of bakery looks like than Kerwin Brown. So thank you for joining us, Kerwin.
Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity. So I've been also looking forward to it. So
good. So I'm gonna ease in here and just sort of ask the fundamental question. I mean, how are the BEMA members adapting in the new COVID environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that that answer really depends on where their focus was going into COVID. So if they were very focused on food service or maybe supplying small bake shops, they were certainly impacted. But if they were really bread, bun, snack, sweet goods, pizza, frozen dough, those type of categories, they were most likely doing really, really well. Same that's on the equipment side. Ingredient side, again, folks that were supplying the sectors that were, really exploding. We were hearing 20, 30, 50, 60% growth over those first few months. They were really doing well. And then overall, our services, we have engineering companies and folks who do plant design and things like that. And bakers needed answers. And so they jumped in and helped them with that. But so we really seen a mix of how people are doing. But overall, I think we did a survey a couple weeks ago in one of our webinars, and we saw that 79% had a positive outlook, either very positive or somewhat positive. So almost 80% of our members were seeing, very, very positive about the future of their business.
Yeah, that was terrific, Kerwin. And I want to congratulate you. I think you were the first group in the sort of baking sphere that went to a virtual convention. And I had an opportunity to listen into a lot of it and watch a lot of it. Just a job really well done. My takeaway, that was the one nugget that I really took away from the session, was sort of that optimistic outlook for the future. The other nugget that I would take away was how nimble and flexible the BEMA members are in terms of adapting, their whole business model and focus. That was one of the questions that I had. We heard a little bit about at the virtual BEMA convention, how your members are adapting. But could you give us a little bit more insight about how are they adapting their service and sales models, which traditionally have been very face-to-face, hands-on? How are they adapting in the new infrastructure, the new environment, if you will?
Yeah, I was going to talk about, there's probably three themes that are emerging, at least for our members. It's communication, it's flexibility, and it's safety. And on that flexibility side, they had to get flexible internally, with their employees, with hours and where you're working from and deadlines and all those challenges that anybody that was operating a business had to get flexible with. But on the customer side, certainly tons of flexibility there with orders and deliveries and installations. Some people wanted their equipment on schedule. Some wanted to delay. Some were ready for installs but couldn't have anybody in their plants. So that equipment might be stored, or maybe it goes to the customer but just waits for a while. I call it COVID grace. There was a whole bunch of COVID grace going on because people just had to be super flexible. But on the, you're talking about the business side, we're seeing, early on we were seeing things that we really didn't think were real possible before COVID were happening. Virtual FATs, factory acceptance tests, virtual service, virtual startup. People were really just diving into these options and figuring it out. And again, the customers were flexible, our members were flexible, and they just started kind of going for it because, as the necessity is the mother of all inventions, it just had to be done. So we're also seeing, sales calls change, where people were just flying all over or going to trade shows or whatever to see those customers and interact with them. That is pretty much was shut down, is starting to emerge now, but much more, Zoom calls and whatever communication means they could use to get a hold of customers they're currently using.
Yeah, I think one of the examples that came out of your convention was the Reading example, where they quickly adapted to the new environment, and you may want to elaborate. And they have found it to be enormously successful because they're reaching more customers than they would through sort of the traditional, in-person, face-to-face events.
Yeah, it's a great example. Reading certainly stopped having trade shows. So they went to webinars, and they were very focused on certain, offerings that they have. And they were seeing hundreds of people, like 300 people come and attend a webinar. They were seeing brand new customers they'd never seen before. Jim Warren serves on our exec committee, and he was a feature one of them that on mixing. And it was great, was part of it, but they're really seeing the ability to do that because they couldn't do trade shows, and it actually being very, very successful. And so I think more and more people are going to try those options until trade shows kind of come back online.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a lot of trial and error, but again, credit to the industry for being adaptable and trying to take advantage of the new tools that are out there. One of the things that and I've talked to I can't tell you how many ABA members, bakers, and suppliers over the last 4 months. And even those that are struggling in the marketplace. One of the common themes, Kerwin, is they're all sticking relatively close to their CapEx plans, which was really interesting. I talked to a baker in the food service side whose business has frankly been down, talked to them on Friday, and they were really clear that they need to stick to that because that's the future. They need to continue and in some cases accelerate their CapEx expenditure so that on the back end, they're going to still be strong and be able to take advantage of whatever that environment looks like. Is that what you're hearing from your members? Is that story universal, or is it more hit or miss?
I think we are hearing a lot of really positive on the CapEx side. We think that, and we even asked that automation question. We had a webinar with 4 bakers a couple weeks ago as part of the virtual convention that you were talking about. And every one of them said exactly what you said. We are moving forward. We're not slowing down. Sometimes we even ask our members and the bakers about automation. Does this make automation more favorable because you need less people touching a product or helping you produce a product? And overall, automation is part of everybody's plan, on the baking side. And so it wasn't a matter of maybe accelerating that, but certainly that justification may have changed a little bit because, you don't want as many people on that line. You want that social distancing and things like that. But overall, people are seeing are super positive, are moving forward with CapEx plans. Now, again, they may have adapted a little bit. Maybe they've just slowed down a little bit. But our folks are, I think it's a very positive time in the industry. They're just, and some of them are being also flexible on CapEx. They're saying, we need more flexibility on this line because maybe we were making for QSR and now we need to make for retail. So we maybe need a little, adjustment. But overall, it's super positive on the CapEx side.
Yeah, and I think if you're looking for a sign of overall industry strength, I mean, that clearly, has to be a big piece of that. It's one of the takeaways. Of course, I always like to think of myself as a glass 3/4 full kind of guy. So I'm always looking for those positive signs of optimism. One of the things that we're hearing a lot about, and ABA worked very closely with some of our other food industry partners in putting out a protocol about how to safely distance in a food manufacturing facility. That's one of those things that I'm going to guess a lot of your members are trying to take a look at, whether it's through automation or engineering. Can you comment on that? Is that something that's going to come quickly, or is that just going to take some time?
Yeah, we saw those resources coming out from ABA and shared those out with our members because, it doesn't matter if you've got if you've got it's manufacturing. It's you're manufacturing equipment or ingredients or you're manufacturing baked goods, you still have manufacturing. So our members certainly are trying to fall in line with that and working on those challenges. And they're, we've heard of sort of the AB. You've got your maybe your Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday folks over a 2-week span, and then you've got your Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday folks on your second team. And so we're seeing a lot of that. Most of our members certainly put their non-essential folks, sent those out to their houses and early on, and are bringing them back, as people are feeling safe and all that. But those manufacturing facilities are certainly look different now than they did a few months ago. There's more sanitation, there's more distancing, team meetings are different, break rooms are different, surfaces are cleaned on a regular basis and all that. So, I think it was great how the industry came together on those resources, and they were hungry for them. Your members and our members were all hungry for those type of resources, saying, what do we do? And so they really made the best of that situation.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Kerwin, because I think one of the, and not to sound immodest, but one of the most impactful moments that we've had in this whole situation is when we get the phone call or the email, minutes, hours after we send something out, when a member reaches out, I'm sure you guys are feeling the same way, and they reach out and they go, thank you for sending, that guidance document, that protocol, whatever, that CDC interpretation, because we were just trying to figure out how to, stay operational, and we were struggling with it. And we got that vital piece of information, so that we could keep our plant running, or whatever the case may be. And I think as an association leader, and I know you subscribe to this too, there's no greater service to provide than when you can be, on the moment, delivering vital information at the critical time. So it really has been a great partnership with the entire industry coming together like that.
Very much so. And then we've, you guys are put that, online resources together. You're having more, I think, a lot of committee meetings and helping those folks in different sectors, if it's HR, F-Track, or whatever. We're doing the same thing with some of our committee meetings, as well as we've done a couple of webinars. We're all just trying to figure it out and create value, create resources, create content for our members. And, one of the real challenges is changing so fast. That it's day to day on state and international and operational and things like that. So it is certainly a challenge to keep being a resource, keep being valuable, and keep providing those resources for our members in the industry.
One of the things that, I know you'll remember this, is a number of years ago, BEMA led an industry kind of ideation project called Bakery of the Future, where I think, to your credit, you got a lot of innovators and creative thinkers from the industry, both bakers and suppliers together, and asked a lot of probing questions, about very innovative concepts, about what a bakery of the future would look like. And I remember we discussed things, some pretty out there ideas like self-cleaning equipment or interchangeable and interconnected pieces of equipment that could talk to each other and could help with preventative maintenance. Sitting here today, what do you think, of those ideas? Again, some of them were pretty far out there. Do you see any of those coming to fruition, in the near term?
Yeah, for sure. I was thinking about this podcast, and I kind of came up with my list of mores and less, and then I'll talk a little bit more about but I think there's going to be more virtual, more sanitizing, more PPEs, more communication. I think we're also more productive, and I think there's more barriers, physical barriers and various kind of barriers. I think the future is less waste, less travel for sure, less to the office and less U.S. and international, less face-to-face and less touch, which is sometimes a challenge, and then less SKUs. Right now, certainly the bakers have reduced some of those SKUs to more optimize their production. But this virtual world it's really been a great experiment in this whole virtual world for our members and the bakers. It's, again, virtual startups, virtual training, and FATs and all those challenges that virtual, communication, all that, where we just kind of dabbled in it in the past. I think, we'd set up a video conference call, and we thought it was a big deal to have a video conference call. Now we have, 6 of them a day. So I think it's really pushed our members and the baking community to figure out how to operate virtually. If it's you've got an iPad out in the plant and you've got headphone or headsets, Halo headsets on you and your customer, and you're walking through the plant and looking at a piece of equipment and seeing where the challenges are, and then you're helping that person troubleshoot that and get that piece of equipment changed out or fixed. It's either here or this has really accelerated that whole virtual world like nothing else ever has.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And that's a term I think I've used a number of times, that, COVID, for better or worse, has been an accelerant of a lot of trends that were kind of in play and we're kind of chunking along, across the entire industry spectrum. One of those, because a big segment of your members are, the ingredient suppliers and packaging suppliers and other service providers. One of the themes that we heard when we did a podcast with Rabobank a month or so ago, one of the themes that came out of it is that consumers across the world are probably going to pay even more attention to health and wellness trends, and particularly just as a preventative, so how do I keep from getting sick, whether it's from COVID or any other disease? And, I know a lot of, we've had a lot of other commentators on that we see a move. Are you hearing from some of your ingredient suppliers? Are they accelerating their investment and pursuing, what the new healthier, better for you products are, including the indulgent products?
I'm probably not going to be able to answer that very well. I think that I think that some of the challenges in packaging and stuff are going to significantly impact where we go. You no longer walk into a convenience store and open up a case and pick out a donut, or, go into a grocery store and see a bin of baked rolls and grab 6 of them and put them in your bag and cart. I think that is super challenging on a packaging side that we're going to have to get used to. And I think occasions, and that's something you guys report on quite a bit, with Todd on the how many occasions you have, that Americans have going into grocery stores. And I think that's got to be down significantly. So how do we walk through that store and get the smell of a nice baked loaf of bread or, rolls or something, and then, grab a couple extra for dinner tonight? And I think that that's a challenge for our industry for sure, that people are going to have to, we're going to have to figure out a way to get around. But I also think on the fun side of baking, and I'm sure, this is something that has been great because, we certainly have been challenged over the last few years about all the negative press that baked goods have received, and, the carbs and all that. And I feel like the entire country, if not the world, just rediscovered sandwiches, and rediscovered baked goods. And there's more baking at home, and people want great taste. They want comfort food. So they're turning to bread and snacks and sweet goods while they're home. And I love that is, that's, of course we believe in baked goods and all that, but it's been wonderful to see how the whole country has sort of is really not talking about some of the negative aspects that they think that bread has, and are just turning to that when they need something, warm and wonderful to turn to.
No, I think that's a great point. And, as I look, in terms of ABA and the industry over the next, 6 months, a year, how do we, in the right way, take advantage of this opportunity? We've had an opportunity to reconnect, reintroduce ourselves to a wider swath of consumers, not only here in the U.S., but all over the world. And on our last board call, which I think you were on, I challenged the ABA board to say, again, bakers, suppliers, what have you, is, again, in the right way, how do we take advantage of this moment in time so that we can, really emphasize all of those great, again, whether it's health and wellness or whether it's just fun, wholesome products, that bring smiles to people's faces. I think it's an opportunity that I hope this industry takes full advantage of in a right way. I want to shift a little bit, Kerwin, because you and I spend, you talk about some of the video conference calls, and you and I spend a lot of time together on IBIE related video conference calls. I think there's 2 or 3 a week. And people don't think about, they think, well, you show up 6 months before the show and it all comes together. There's a lot of work by your team and our team, and especially by the committee. But I want you to sort of, envision, we've in 2.5 years, in October of 2022, we're all standing back in Vegas at the convention center. What do you think is going to be the biggest headliner, must-see innovation in bakery when we get to Vegas in 2022?
I think I'll lean on my virtual question or my virtual answer again and say, we have to figure out as a baking world how to integrate the virtual world so much better than we ever have in the past, and service and support the baking community 24 hours a day, no matter where you are in the world. And so we're going to have all kinds of augmented reality and virtual reality options, I think, over the next few years. And you're going to see those. We were seeing them at shows. We saw them at our show. We saw them at EBA. We're seeing them, but I think the landscape will be, there'll be many more of those options going forward. But I think also, our show, Rob, is such a community show. People have been going to our show for decades, and it is the chance for everybody to come together, see old friends, connect, innovate, talk about the future. We're educating thousands of people at our show. And so I think that is what I'm really looking forward to as well, is having our community back together again. And you don't realize what you have until you don't have it. And so I think everybody will be pretty anxious over the next year, and certainly next 2.5 years to be back together as a community.
I couldn't agree with you more, Kerwin. I know as human beings, we're genetically predisposed to socialize. I think the bakers do that, cubed, and higher. I really think that, by 2.5 years from now, the thirst and the drive, even though there will be events, but it'll be really the first time, hopefully when a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the uncertainty will be in the rearview mirror. And I'm so looking forward to being in Vegas in 2022, just to see that, just to that point, just to see the community come back together. I want to pivot just a little bit, and then I'll throw it to Katie and Haley to kind of wrap up. So one of the other things that I love about this industry, and I know that you do too, is we have, as a baking industry, we have this sort of noble sense of the community that is much greater than just our baking community. As important as that is, one of the things that has been so noble and so empowering has been the way this industry has given back in so many different ways to their local community, to the country, and not just, producing product and keeping the country fed, but really even the companies that have been struggling, how they have given back to all of the different programs. BEMA did a fantastic job with the We Need You Give Back campaign supporting Feeding America. Would you touch on that? I think you all just did a fantastic job of energizing the industry and really serving the communities that we all live and work in.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. It was, probably in the April timeframe, we were seeing that our members' customers were really being impacted. People, fast casual QSRs were closed down, or the volume was way down, and so our board started brainstorming on how can we help this out. And then, you're seeing all these great stories about frontline workers and essential workers making such a difference. And so we said, why don't we put that idea together? So we came up with a We Need You, and need is like the bread need. So we just threw that out to our members and really the industry and said, buy some food from fast casual QSR, so you're supporting them, and donate it to some frontline workers. And that was about all the criteria we gave them. Members got really creative and jumped in and, donated to hospitals and firefighters and policemen and teachers and the cancer centers and, mental rehab and all that. And I got to do a couple of them here in Kansas City. Did one with Tippins Pies, which is a wonderful pie manufacturer here in Kansas City area. And, you just see these faces light up, and the folks, the essential, folks, frontline workers were so appreciative. And then with every act of kindness, we were donating to Feeding America, and we raised just under about $17,000 for Feeding America. And which was, again, it just was one of those feel-good things about our industry. And it was great to see how people, kind of rallied around that. And then sort of on the heels of that, we did the virtual, part of our virtual convention, we did the 1 hour virtual telethon, which I know you were a part of and actually you supported. And that was also a fun way for our industry to come together. We wanted a way to support the women's bakery in Rwanda. And so we came up with kind of a crazy idea to do a 1 hour virtual telethon, like in the old days, the Jerry Lewis telethons, and really just to promote the women's bakery and try to drive some funds and just awareness for the women's bakery. And we raised about $25,000 for them, and actually had a lot of fun at the same time. But again, we continue to see, like you said, how the industry is coming together. And we're hearing that not only in things like these give backs, but, when we're talking to our members, it's just been amazing to see how, I think Brad Alexander talked about it on your call about how the industry, suppliers and bakers have really banded together and, getting through all this. It's been, it's just kind of what our industry does.
No, and it's you're absolutely right, Kerwin. And when you talked about, your board, similar to our board, it's, we don't get caught up in a lot of, hand wringing and all of that. The question is, what can we do to help? And then we just get it done. And I absolutely love that about this industry. So with that, I'm gonna close out. I know Katie and Haley might have a question or two. You mentioned Brad Alexander before. I want to repeat a message that he sent to all of the BEMA members, and just a huge thank you from the ABA members for the incredible job the BEMA members are doing to help our industry feed the world. Just keeping us running, making sure we've got ingredients where they need to be on time, packaging, all of that kind of stuff. We could not continue to feed our country and feed the world without the great support of the BEMA members. And so I just wanted to repeat, Brad Alexander's praise and thanks and appreciation.
Yeah, and thank you so much for joining us too, Kerwin. Before we let out, a few times you mentioned the word trade show, and then you also mentioned innovation and change. I'm wondering, with IBIE, since I have both of you here, I know that we're still 2.5 years out, but are we going to look, or should attendees expect some sort of a virtual element as well, or is it just too early to tell?
I really think, and I'm guessing that Rob is, we all are rethinking not only our conventions and our education, but certainly the trade show that we own together. And I think everything is going to have going forward, will have a virtual element. There'll be hybrid. You'll take the best or a few of your educational offerings and you make them, you put them online. We'll do the same thing with our trade show. So we don't know exactly what elements that will entail at this point, but there'll certainly be a virtual element, because then you're really exposing your education and your offerings to the world. And so I think we'll grow in that area for sure.
Yeah, I'm sitting over here nodding my head enthusiastically to what Kerwin was saying. I completely agree. And I would say one of the benefits that we have with the 3-year show is we do have 2.5 years to sort of figure it out. And sort of, again, we really strive to be kind of world-class, best-in-class with IBIE and really deliver on that experience. And I think there will be a strong virtual component. But Kerwin's absolutely right. We've got a little bit of time to figure it out. But I think we'll, again, like we do with everything with IBIE, we're going to come pretty strong to the party.
Awesome. Yeah. And I'm definitely looking forward to that and kind of seeing how everything rolls out. So thank you guys so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this.
It was great to listen to you guys. And I'm sure our listeners will love it as well. And I want to let everyone know that if you enjoyed this podcast, we have so many more with bakers, suppliers, global food strategists, and even some of the ones that were mentioned today. Tippins, we had an episode with Jim Antrup from Tippins. So go take a listen. All the conversations are unique, and really we can learn a lot from our guests. So you can find this episode and more at baketothefuture.org. And don't forget to subscribe to Bake to the Future wherever you listen to podcasts.
Bake to the Future is brought to you by the American Bakers Association in partnership with Human Factor. To hear upcoming and past episodes, go to baketothefuture.org. Bake to the Future is produced by Haley Blumenreich. Audio engineer is Blake Alton. And A Slice of the Action is written by the American Bakers Association's Government Relations team.